All right. Well, hey, we're at 3 o'clock, so might as well get going here. Thanks everybody for joining us for another town hall. Kyle, or what's the deets? Today, not too big of an agenda. We have just the poll that I posted earlier this week about moving the governance forum, which we can talk about real quickly. And then there's a solid post on the forum that I'd like to talk through, and hopefully some people got to get some eyes on in the last day about sunsetting the liquidity pool emissions and the pools themselves. So I'm going to actually go on ahead and link that in the voice chat below. But why don't we go on ahead and get started with the moving of the governance workshop. So this is something that we've talked about for a couple weeks now. And after last Saturday and Saturday before that kind of having diminishing turnout, I put up that poll, and it kind of fit with exactly how I had thought that, like a rescheduling of the governance workshop was going to work out. And so, I would like to kind of just take the best answers from that poll and just go with that to start. So what I'm seeing is that the best day and time for us to do a new governance workshop will be on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So keeping that same time frame from Saturdays, but now moving to Wednesdays. And so we'll try that out next week. And if that doesn't seem to get more attendance, or we're feeling that time slot doesn't work, we can reevaluate. But we're going to go on ahead and push through with moving the governance workshop to Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time. All right. The only other topic I had outside of discussing the forum post was just quickly pointing everyone to the updates that we had on KIPs 13, 14, 15, and 16. So if you missed those updates, we posted that in the updates channel. Quick recap, our KIP 13, our buyback, that officially concluded. We ended up acquiring just under 37,000 Rook for 1,500 ETH. The approximate price total value of that was about 3,800,000 plus. So we stayed a little bit under, the total estimated budget for the proposal, and acquired at an average price of 0.0408. So you can find all the deposits with the linked update there. KIP 14, which was seeding the BAMM with B protocol, that we ended up switching $5 million of USDC for LUSD, and that deposit happened as well. So this is pretty much like the final step that allows our team to move on to like the last touches for that integration before it goes live. And we'll make an announcement when that integration goes live as well. KIP 15, Hazard posted that the SO funds have determined that it passed reconciliation. So we'll see some of those transfers there in the labs budget get funded, and we'll see some of those initiatives kicked off. That was from there as well. And then lastly, KIP 16, which was the sunsetting of the hiding vault product, as well as ending Rook rewards. So the last block was right after that snapshot ended. So that block was posted in the update. You can click on the Etherscan link there as well. And that brings us to kind of where we are today, which is this awesome proposal that I think Peso and maybe a few other community members contributed on, which was about sunsetting our liquidity pools. So Peso, do you want to come on up and tell us about your proposal?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
All right, so this has been sort of talked about a lot in the Discord if you've been here for a minute. But basically the crux of it is, and I didn't have the chance to read everyone's comments on it, so this might not necessarily pertain to that. But basically, the hiding game product, right? You need to have flash loans for the orders to actually go through with it. And that's basically the reason why we had the existence of the LP. There's also like the argument of sort of attracting keepers to KeeperDAO because it's the only feeless liquidity pool where you can use flash loans. But then the downside of that is you're basically locking up a large, it wouldn't necessarily be a problem if it was sort of all community deposits, but a large portion of that is our own treasury, just to make sure that we have enough capital in there to adequately operate the hiding game. But now that we've sort of turned off emissions for the hiding game, we're averaging about 3 daily users, which is not a lot, obviously. And it sort of restricts treasury diversity a lot. You know, we can't really do anything with all of these K assets that are sort of locked into the LP, right? So I think maybe sort of shutting down the liquidity pools, because once the coordination game is live, keepers are going to be using the users' funds to capture the MEV as opposed to using flash loans. So it sort of makes flash loan pools obsolete for us. So there's really no reason to have that beyond just arbitrary inflation of the token and sort of restricting roughly 50% of our treasury into these different types of assets, which could then instead be used in interesting ways by the treasury manager or by the community through KIPs by farming or whatever, and then we could use the revenue from the farming to buy back Rook to supplement the staking APY for X Rook. Another small portion of this KIP is the idea to use the existing Rook that was sort of quote unquote farmed by the treasury to supplement the X Rook APY. I think that's just a natural place for that Rook to go. There's a fair argument to be made to use that Rook for contributor salaries or whatever, and I'm fully okay with hearing out that perspective as well. I mean, I just think we should be using that Rook actively, and if it's just going to sit idle in the treasury, I think maybe it'd be better to be used to supplement the APY when so many eyes are going to be on us when the coordination game launches. And then from there, right? So then there's an argument to be made for keeping some of the funds in the LP, some of the treasury funds in the LP, just so the hiding game can continue to function, right? Because if we take it all out and we have 0 deposits in the LP, then the hiding, like we can't fill out orders in the hiding game. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm sort of torn. In one hand, ideally, I imagine we are very close to the coordination game. So it sort of doesn't matter if the hiding game goes offline for a week or whatever. And I don't know if there's sort of community deposits in there that would sort of be enough for it to sort of allow it to sort of still operate under the highly reduced load since we've stopped these Rook rewards for the hiding game, right? So that's basically it, right? So liquidity pools are obsolete, considering the hiding game, considering the coordination game. So I think it's time that we sort of shut that down. That's basically like the TLDR of this kit.
Awesome. Thanks for hopping up and explaining, Peso. Do we have anyone that wants to hop up and make some comments first? I'm happy to quickly share some thoughts of my own. I think that this is a great idea, and I think it's a logical conclusion to the liquidity pools. I think that there's maybe a few separate aspects that I think maybe could be isolated from this KIP to expedite it. For me specifically, I think that the number one thing that many people want to see here is the end of emissions. And this is the very last kind of, let's call it domino to fall for us to become deflationary. So I would love for that to kind of be paramount to this. Number one is ending, Rook rewards for the pool. And then the second half of this was kind of withdrawing treasury funds and allocating it towards investments, initiatives, farming, whatever that might be. For me, I think that the decision on what to do with those funds, that should probably be left for another time, maybe once the budgeting framework is fully approved and live, or we have specific strategies identified for those. So for me, like, maybe not including kind of what we're going to do next in this, might be a good way to look at this. And then, the very last point that I wanted to bring up was I had talked with a few team members about what the impact would be if all liquidity pools went to zero. And I think it would be really, really bad for Ninja and for our current testing and deploying of the coordination game. And I think that until a next iteration of our protocol is ready, I don't know if we should be completely deprecating the liquidity pools. And I think that there's a certain minimum that should stay in there. So I think that we can withdraw a majority of the treasury assets from there, where we still have more than enough to do strategic investments and whatever the DAO decides, but we leave in enough for operations to continue running until they're 100% certain that they won't impact our operations. So those are my thoughts on this. But I see Tommy and Pai Show popped up in here, so I'll let them share.
Yeah, I'll let Pai start because I think he has more details about when we can implement this with regards to Ninja now.
Yeah, sure. So I just have a quick clarification, I guess, to make. So even after the coordination game launches, Ninja will still rely on flash loans from the liquidity pools to fill orders for the time being. It's once we launch the new swap protocol that Ninja will no longer need those. So we just need to keep some minimum amount in the liquidity pools for Ninja for the next, however many months it takes us to get the new swap protocol out. But it shouldn't be, very much.
Right, and so that is separate from. Oh, go ahead, Tommy.
If that's from our own treasury, can we just turn emissions off and just leave it in there? Or
yeah, absolutely. We should definitely kill emissions. I'm super in favor of that, but we just have to figure out, what's the minimum amount we can leave in to keep Ninja operational, and then go from there.
Right. If you think about all of the opportunities that Ninja can take on, and it's not just kind of flash loan, arbitrage swapping, with liquidations and other things that it's capable of doing. I just want to kind of keep in mind that, the less of a pool available might mean the less of an opportunity for a really major arbitrage. So I would just want to make sure that Ninja has enough to be fully competitive compared to the other keepers and have the opportunity to win and secure those arbitrage opportunities as well, and keep as one of kind of Ninja's roles in the coordination game, kind of keep everybody honest. And so if Ninja has the opportunity to go after legitimately every opportunity because of these polls or these pools, I think that is something that we need to kind of keep in mind in terms of fully deprecating them. But just kind of hammering home, there's no need for emissions for this anymore. As a portion of the treasury funds should be more than enough to keep Ninja operating until we hit that new swap protocol. But why don't we see if anyone else has got some comments here? Peso, let's call you back up.
I have some questions. I don't know who can answer them. But currently, the LP provides sort of feeless flash loans to sort of anyone who wants to use them. Can we sort of, if we keep the LP on for sort of X amount of months, can we put a fee on there? So sort of any keeper that isn't Ninja has to actually give us some form of revenue?
We would not be able to do that without migrating to new smart contracts, which I think is probably not worth it. Right now, there's no fee enforced. It just makes sure that the returned amount is greater than or equal to the borrowed amount. So, if we wanted to enforce a fee, we'd need to deploy a new contract.
Very nice. That's unfortunate. That's all. That's just that's unfortunate. But that's fine. You know, you can have your cake and eat it, I guess.
All right. Do we have anyone else that have some thoughts on this topic, or any questions or other ideas?
Yeah. So, with regards to the remaining Rook, I mean, so I am a community member. Like, if my staking API would be petted, that'd be like personally beneficial to me. But where should it go to? Like, I intuitively feel it just should just go to like the contributors, so we can just get more people on board and grow faster, and token price will go up. What does everybody think about this?
Yeah, looking for crowd answers here. Starfire calling you up first. Peso will call you up afterwards.
I think there could be a balance between. I don't think 100% of it should go to contributors, and I do like Peso's idea of supplementing the APY at the launch of the coordination game with some of that acquired Rook, just because it'll make it more attractive for new holders to buy and stake and kind of be long-term oriented with the project.
Yeah, that's a good point. Has anyone else got any thoughts here? Peso calling you up.
I have a question. What is stopping us from using the treasury reserves at the time that we minted Rook, like last year, like the token was created, right? We have like 30% of the supply just sitting there. Like, why can't we use that to as runway is my question. Do we have like this problem that we it's like sort of pseudo inflationary for to pay contributors, or like do we want to buy every Rook that we pay contributors with on the open market? Like I'm genuinely curious. Like I maybe I just don't understand something that you guys are sort of seeing as obvious. But if we have 30% of the supply as treasury reserve assets, sort of whose purpose of the purpose of that Rook was to grow the protocol, why do we need to sort of take the Rook from the LP to pay contributors when we already have such a deep pool of Rook that we can fish from for contributor runway, basically?
I can answer that. The answer essentially is that the strategic reserve Rook, it was never fully sort of clarified what exactly the sort of legitimate purposes of that Rook would be. So I, to some extent, agree with you that, you could say that the growth of the protocol should be linked to contributors, and so, incentivizing them is important. I think initially the concept was that these was sort of very long-term reserves, where if the way they would be used, if ever, would be for sort of partnerships and growth, more like protocol to protocol or something like that. I would say that has been the operating principle. It's something that might get revisited at some point, but that's sort of been the operating principle, right? In order for that to happen in a real sense, we would need to kind of in a way activate those Rook, right? They're not currently part of the DAO treasury, and so it would be, I think there's a good case to be made that, some more clarity and more elaboration of the purpose of the strategic reserve, as well as how we might go about using it and on what time scale would be good. Because, it's important to understand that when we pay contributors a Rook or anything, for example, they're going to, in many jurisdictions, owe taxes. And so this will kind of lead to Rook entering the market, new Rook entering the market. So in a sense, if we use strategic reserves to pay contributors, we're going to be placing Rook into, some amount of it, depends on the individual, into circulation, right? So there's also that consideration as well. But this is a big topic. We should probably have a more dedicated discussion on it. But I'm glad you're raising it.
Okay, well, that's it. That was my only thing. I think sort of you mentioned activating the Rook by sort of transferring it to the treasury makes a lot of sense. That's something that I was toying around in my head at some point. I was like, why is it separate? But yeah, 100%. I agree with most of what you said, or everything that you said.
Wes, did you want to say something? I see you're up here.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of support your point, I guess, a little bit more, that the fund should be used for incentivizing like new contributorships and growing as fast as we can. I do like padding the APY in the beginning, but if it were to be split, I would like to see a larger or I guess a much larger portion be for contributors. That's all.
So it would seem like we have some consensus finding to do on kind of utilization of the assets talked about, whether it's the Rook or the Rook that we got in rewards, or what we do with the different treasury assets we pull out of the LPs. So for me, I see this kind of the key components of this, which would be committing to sunsetting the product as well as ending the emissions is kind of like the two paramount side parts of this. So personally, I would kind of like to see the use of the assets separated from this, so that way we can just get this get to consensus on this, and hopefully get it to SOFON review and to a vote and approved, and then we can asynchronously find consensus on what to do with the assets. That would be my position here. Peso, calling you back up.
Yep. Okay. So just as like I just want like a takeaway from this call, so that I can just sort of push these changes to the KIP, so we can actually be as agile as possible in sunsetting the LP. So I think, would it be okay to take out 75% of treasury assets in the LP, and then keep the other 25%, and then the other 25% we effectively shut off all Rook emissions from the LP while it's still active? Does that sound okay with everyone? So we still sort of reach like we basically stop all Rook emissions. We get a large chunk of our treasury that we're able to deploy however we want, sort of the DAO as a whole. But then, is that 25% that is left big enough to keep Ninja operational?
I've asked this question to Joey, Jay-Z as well. And he said that he wanted to see about $5 million in each pool. So that would really more come out to like 50% of the treasury assets that are currently staked. And it kind of varies because, if you look at our assets right now in the chart that Peso included in his proposal, that has, we're down to about like 4.75-ish million in in USDC. So like not touching the USDC there, but we have 12 million DAI. So we could pull out 7 million of that. And so that would be my hope, is that we at least leave kind of 5 mil in each pool. But with no emissions, that's only treasury stuff, and people will also take their time to pull their funds out. So I think there would be some of that opportunity there as well.
Are you going to talk, Pi Show? Or actually, can you talk, please? I would love to hear your thoughts on what you just posted in the voice chat.
Yeah, sure. So 5 million is not like a hard number. I think this was just sort of something we were throwing around a few days ago. I think if we put a little bit more thought into it and looked at like some historical data, we could get by with a lot less than 5 million in each pool. But that's something we need to consider a little bit more, I guess. I think that's probably like an upper bound.
Can we put you on the spot for the lower bound?
I'd have to go scrape some.
I'm just teasing you.
Historical data, but I'd say like maybe 1 million as like a.
Okay.
Is this something that we want to include with the proposal? Then is withdrawing a specific amount, or should we just, the same way with the hiding vaults, just more commit to kind of sunsetting the product and ending emissions? I'm not sure how quickly we can run the numbers on that and have a definitive answer.
I mean, we can just split it up, right? That'll make us shut off the emissions faster, I guess. It's a simpler kit that way.
So 2 separate kits, one to shut off emissions and one to decide how much to leave in the pools.
Yep.
Do we have any idea how much profits we've actually made from these LPs?
The last time I checked, the number was around 6,000 Rook since the very first LP. I think that was in Act 1. So I think that number's something around 6,000 or 7,000 Rook.
What about like the like ARBs that Ninja is doing? Because it looks like the profits are like almost infinitesimally small.
Currently?
By profits, you mean the fees being returned to the pool?
Yeah, the fees are just like whatever Ninja's actually making with these ARBs that I guess they're depositing into the treasury.
So right now, Ninja's not depositing any of its profit into the treasury. That's being used to buy back Rook.
What you're seeing going into the treasury is our like infinitesimal fee of the LP flash loans. So I think that the flash loan fee is like some 1/1,000,000% or something. So somebody takes out $1 million flash loan and they pay us like 3 cents.
The flash loan fee, I mean, the contract just requires the returned amount to be greater than the borrowed amount. So you can return it with one extra way, and that still counts as a valid transaction. So there really is no fee right now.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
That's the flows you see in the treasury. Like if you look at on Gnosis and you see, regular deposits going to the treasury, that's the quote unquote flash loan fee.
So does Ninja need these LPs to execute people's trades from the hiding book, or are these ARBs like just a different thing that Ninja's also doing on the side, plus like separate from the trades that it executes?
No, Ninja does rely on these pools currently to fill hiding game orders too.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good to know.
All right. Questions or comments from anybody else?
So about using some of this treasury Rook to supplement the staking APY, I think it's a cool idea, but I do think it deserves its own kip because there are some interesting considerations. Like there's some cool stuff we could potentially do with that, like in order to incentivize people keeping their Rook in the staking pool. Like the naive way might be, we release some amount every month or whatever. But like, what if we had some sort of mechanism where, some of the treasury yield Rook gets released to the staking pool at like a random interval, and it's not like announced beforehand, or like, I don't know. There's some interesting dynamics.
Act up to the end of an act, you get like X amount bonus. What
That's not a bad idea.
just a thought, like, and then there's sort of a transparent sort of cutoff date for when the beginning of an act is considered. But then you might get some dumping if we give it out all in one lump sum. Maybe it's like an APY boost for your sort of X Rook in the next act or something along those lines. But all of that would have to be in the sort of staking contract upgrade, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because currently it's a very rudimentary staking contract, and all of those changes would be sent in like the upgraded version, right?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can do. We could do all that stuff with the current staking contract. It just wouldn't be on chain, like we'd have to go calculate that after the fact and then distribute the Rook accordingly.
Okay, that's bars. I fuck with that.
Yeah, I think I'd rather do what you're kind of suggesting, Peso, than just kind of pump the APY up. Our APY should go up over time, unlike a lot of these other tokens, right? As we push more volume through the hiding book. So, having it artificially inflated at the beginning sounds great, but like, I'd rather get it to people that are, long term.
And there's a lot of creative stuff we could do. I think this definitely deserves its own KIP with some thought put into how best to distribute that Rook in order to keep people in the pool as long as possible.
Yeah, and the last thing I want would be more yield farmers. I'd rather get people that are like long-term aligned.
Right, and it shouldn't really make sense for people to buy Rook just to yield farm initially, especially because we should see the volume go up substantially over time. It might be pretty low at the beginning, but as long as you're here for the project and believe in the project, then there's reason to think that it if you're holding, that it's going to go up. So Dietz had to step out. Is there anything else we want to talk about, Tommy?
I don't know. I don't have the agenda. Is there?
Sorry, just going through the announcements here.
Cue the lo-fi radio music. While we figure it
back in. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about first? I guess that's the easiest way to start.
Hi. So I just have two quick questions.
Yeah.
First being, I'm just a fellow community member holding Rook for a long time now. So I just, do you guys have any timeline for the coordination game as to like maybe within these months or within this time frame it's going to be released? And then the second question I have is, do we have anything in place for insider trading in the sense of, let's say, like the insider guys know maybe the coordination game will be coming out, or and then they front run it, or based off the buyback that we just had, they front run or they sell or whatever it is. Do we have any protocols or anything in place to prevent such things?
Well, first, with the launch of coordination game, we're just waiting on a couple audits, and I think it should be sooner than later. I don't want to like give an exact date because I don't think we have one because we're waiting on these audits. But we're trying to get that pushed out as soon as possible. Tommy, do you want to touch on the second one, the second part?
Sure.
I can speak to it a little bit.
Go for it.
One of the priorities that I have is the reduction of information asymmetries because it makes it difficult for us to do governance, difficult or more work for us to do communication, and in theory, it makes it possible for conflicts of interest to occur, like insider trading. If you look back over the course of announcements and things that where you maybe could have insider traded, it's actually not that great. Probably, if you were to have attempted it, I think your record might not be so hot. However, it's certainly something that can happen. We know that it does happen in the industry. And while I'm sort of trying to focus on eliminating these asymmetries for proactive good reasons, certainly eliminating the potential for these sorts of things is also an important reason to look at it. And especially with a project like coordination, where there's a lot of there's been a lot of talk about it and hype about it, and we all believe that it's going to be very important for the project. The potential is there, so that's a very valid question, and I can commit to making it so that the community should know everything about what's happening as it's happening, and that the people on the team should be, positioning themselves, if they do so in their own time, in a way that is sort of, not taking advantage of any knowledge they may have. And part of the way that we mitigate that is to just continuously provide information and to make coordination or the release of the coordination game more of a process and less of an event on a specific day or a specific time. So, it's not something that should be happening, but if it does happen, if it is happening, then it's something we absolutely are going to look into.
Yeah, and reputation is just so key in this space too. Like, there's really not much that hurts your integrity more or reputation more than kind of getting called out on something like that. So,
Yeah, but it's also like hard, right? Because someone can just make a new MetaMask and then just do their thing.
Sure. I mean, you can do it if you for sure, of course. I also read the Zach XBT threads every day, and it's like a nightmare. Ever getting on one of those.
This is a major reason why we do want to pursue more communication, more open development, co-development, and erase this line between community member and team member, because ultimately we are all, not ultimately, like originally, continuously, we're also community members, and any information should be available to everybody. That's how it should be. It's a process of getting there is somewhat difficult, but to some extent, not that this would be much consolation, but fortunately, just being in the community, you're aware of things that most people probably aren't aware of because nobody visits the Discord. So good for you. Good for all of us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the questions.
I had another question, or another thing to kind of talk about, just to touch on and make people aware of. So, KIP 12 extended until the end of March, it's the end of the first quarter of the calendar year. KIP 12 is the KIP that sort of was, empowered members of the multi-sig to make certain reorganization moves. It was essentially the reorg KIP. And so we're nearing the end of that first quarter. We're nearing the end of this last month, March. And so I just wanted to put on everybody's radar that you can expect some more communication and discussion around sort of a report about activities during this quarter, and lots of sort of status updates and activity related to communicating and making everything sort of everything reported, and probably have a bunch of special town halls and discussions and stuff near the end of the month to coincide with the end of the quarter and present a lot of the work that's happened, the progress that's been made, and findings and stuff. So I know it's sort of time flies, and also there's a lot going on, and so it's probably not on people's minds, but just wanted to remind everybody and tell everybody to look forward to that in the coming weeks.
Great, thanks so much. Anybody else have any questions? Happy to call you up. Alcap, nothing today? Okay. Tommy, you got anything else you want to talk about? Or going to close this thing down?
I think we're good. We got a few announcements to make for like new hires and stuff over time, but that can wait.
Yeah, we have a few people to introduce, I think, next week. It's exciting. You've done a great job bringing new people on board.
Also, potentially some new females, which they have to DAO. Yeah, that's cool.
That is cool. Okay, well, I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by and sharing your thoughts and participating. It's always great to see you here. But we will see you around in the Discord, and we'll see you next Friday. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.